37 participants participated with the designated POPs review committee members. The committee took 12 decisions, and in my presentation I will introduce all the 12 decisions so that you will have the clear idea on the outcomes of this meeting. 5 chemicals were discussed, and so the first 2 decisions were related to the risk profiles. Decision POPRC8 is on chlorinated naphthalene. Decision POPRC8 is on hexachlorobutadiene. For those 2 chemicals, draft risk profiles were considered, and the committee adopted the revised risk profiles during the meeting. The final risk profiles are available as UNEP/POP/POPRC8/16 add1 and add2. The English advanced version is already available on the POPRC website. The committee established intersessional working groups for those 2 chemicals to prepare draft risk management evaluation during the intersessional period. The committee also invited parties and observers to submit Annex E information. I think there's a mistake. It should be Annex F information. And also to provide other information related to Annex E, in particular data on sources of emissions, such as the production and/or an intentional release of those chemicals. And the deadline was set on 11 January 2013. The request letter was sent to parties on 25th of October, and the letter is also available on the website, as well as the submission form for Annex F information related to those 2 chemicals. The next decision was on hexabromocyclododecane. The chemical was discussed at last POPRC7 meeting, when the committee adopted the risk management evaluation and decided to recommend to the COP that it consider listing of this chemical. At POPRC8, the committee looked at further information collected during the intersessional period on the use of hexabromocyclododecane and available alternatives to this chemical. Based on that information, the committee decided to recommend to the COP that it consider listing of this chemical in Annex A with specific exemptions for expanded polystyrene and extruded polystyrene in buildings. So this is the text included in the decision POPRC8/3, and the recommendation was communicated to parties on 25th October 2012 by a letter, so that it could be considered at the 6th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, which will take place in Geneva from 28 April to 11 May. The recommendation needed to be communicated to parties 6 months in advance of the meeting, and that is why the parties received this communication on 25th October. All the related information, such as risk profiles and risk management evaluation on this chemical, are available on the website of the Stockholm Convention. The 4th decision was on pentachlorophenol and its salts and esters. The committee had looked at this chemical at the 7th meeting, but was unable to take decision at that time because of some lack of information on transformation from pentachlorophenol to pentachloroanisole. Based on the information collected during the intersessional period, the committee at its 8th meeting was satisfied that the screening criteria had been fulfilled for this chemical. And so it took the decision to establish the intersessional working group to prepare a draft risk profile on this chemical. So, therefore, the committee invited parties and observers to submit Annex E information. It is written Annex F in this presentation, but this needs to be corrected. It will be revised and will be circulated as a revised version. The deadline of submission is 11 January 2013. The evaluation on pentachlorophenol and its salts and esters is included in the annex to this decision POPRC8/4. The last chemical discussed at this meeting was short-chain chlorinated paraffins. The committee was still unable to reach consensus either to move this chemical to Annex F phase or to set the proposal aside. And therefore it decided to establish an intersessional working group to discuss the application of the criteria specified in Annex E to short-chain chlorinated paraffins and consider any new information that may be submitted to the committee and revise the relevant parts of the draft risk profile. The revised draft risk profile will be presented at POPRC11 in 2015. Which means that it postponed the consideration on this chemical for 3 years. The intersessional working group will not do any activities during this intersessional period from 2012 to 2013, but the committee still invites the information, any information that could help decision making of the POPRC related to short-chain chlorinated paraffins. So regarding this chemical, there is no formal decision taken, but the proposal on next steps for SCCPs was included as an annex to the meeting report. Decision POPRC8/5 was on issues and common practice in the application of the Annex E criteria. During the intersessional period between POPRC7 and POPRC8, a discussion paper was prepared by the chair of the committee, which described issues and common practices in the application of the Annex E criteria. This was included in INF/9 of the document, and the committee decided to establish an intersessional working group to revise this paper so that the committee will have a better understanding on Annex E criteria application. This activity is supposed to be helping the decision-making for short-chain chlorinated paraffins. According to the work plan set out in the Annex to Decision POPRC8/5, the first revised draft is supposed to be developed by 1st of January 2013. The next slides will provide you with brief information on what Annex E and Annex F information will cover. The Annex E information that is needed for the development of risk profile is listed here. It covers sources, hazard assessment of the endpoints, environmental fate, monitoring data, exposure in local areas as a result of long-range environmental transport, national and international risk evaluations, and status of the chemical under international conventions. There's a specific format for the collection of Annex E information. Annex F information, on the other hand, is used for the development of risk management evaluation documents. The information is related to socio-economic considerations, such as efficacy and efficiency of possible control measures in meeting risk reduction goals, technical feasibility, cost, efficacy, risk availability, and accessibility of alternatives, which is very important for the committee to make decision on whether the chemical should be listed under Annex A or Annex B with specific exemption or without. Other implications such as waste and disposal implications, positive or negative impacts on society of implementing possible control measures, status of control and monitoring capacity, any national or regional control actions taken are also covered under Annex F information. Decision 8/6 was related on assessment of alternatives to endosulfan. At COP5, the committee was requested to assess the chemical and non-chemical alternatives to endosulfan and report to the COP6 on its findings. At POPRC8, the committee developed the terms of reference for the assessment, and at POPRC8, the committee had looked at the draft assessment report on chemical alternatives to endosulfan and the evaluation of non-chemical alternatives to endosulfan. During the information collection period, parties and observers provided information related to alternatives to endosulfan, and this information was compiled and summarized by the Secretariat. Other useful information was compiled as fact sheets on the chemical alternatives to endosulfan, and all of those information was decided to be forwarded to the COP6. Also, in this decision, the committee developed the report that will be submitted to the COP6 on the assessment of alternatives to endosulfan for the consideration. The summary report is contained in the annex to decision POPRC8/6. The main finding of this report is that the committee conducted first the screening stage of all the information provided by parties. There were a total of 110 chemical alternatives to endosulfan in the beginning. The committee did a screening. The intersessional working group of the committee undertook the screening of all the 110 chemicals, and the group categorized the chemicals into four groups, screening category 1, screening category 2, screening category 3, and screening category 4, based on the available information related to the persistence and bioaccumulation. The screening category 4, the chemicals did not fit in any of the criteria of persistence and bioaccumulation, and this chemical was not assessed for the further assessment. Other categories, category 1, 2, and 3, were sent to further assessment to look at the assessment of long-range environment transport and hazard indicators, and so on. And finally, after the further evaluation, the committee could classify the chemicals into 3 groups: class 1, class 2, and class 3. There was one chemical classified as class 1, substances that the committee considered met all Annex D criteria, and this was dicofol. There were other 9 chemicals that fell under class 2. Class 2 chemicals were substances that the committee considered might meet all Annex D criteria but remained undetermined due to some of insufficient data. So you can have a look at those chemicals as part of the decision taken by the committee, and this will be forwarded to the COP6. Similar study was undertaken for DDT. The next decision is on DDT, decision POPRC8/7. The same intersessional working group also looked at the chemical alternatives to DDT and prepared the assessment report and fact sheets. The committee decided to forward this information to the COP6 and included the report in the decision. For DDT alternatives, a total of 11 chemicals were assessed. So there was no screening phase. All the 11 chemicals were assessed in depth, and as a result, there were 3 classifications. Class 1 chemical, substances that the committee considered met all Annex D criteria. There was no chemical that fell under this class. Class 2, substances that the committee considered might meet all Annex D criteria but remained undetermined due to equivocal or insufficient data. 1 chemical fell under this class, which was bifenthrin. And other 10 chemicals were Class 3 substances that the committee considered not likely to fulfill the criteria in Annex D. As similarly to the endosulfan decision, the decision will contain the summary report as an annex to this decision. Decision POPRC8/8 was on perfluorooctane sulfonic acid, its salts, and perfluorooctane sulfonyl fluoride in open applications. The COP5 gave POPRC the mandate to conduct an assessment of alternatives to PFOS in open applications and requested the POPRC to prepare recommendations based on the technical paper. The technical paper was prepared by a consultant, and it is available as UNEP/POP/POPRC8 Inf 17. It was revised during the meeting, so there is a Rev 1 of this document. The recommendations were prepared based on this technical paper, which included some information on available alternatives to some of the uses listed as exemptions, specific exemptions for PFOS. The next decision, POPRC8/9, is on guidance on alternatives to PFOS, its salts, and PFOS-S. The name of the guidance document used to be Guidance on Alternatives to Perfluorooctane sulfonate and its derivatives, but the title was changed to be consistent with the name of the chemical listed under the convention. The committee decided to establish an intersessional working group to revise the current version of the guidance document, which is available as POPRC6/13/Ad3 Rev 1, on the basis of the comments submitted by parties and observers, and also any additional information made available to the working group, including the information from PFOS in open applications studies. However, the committee will be waiting for the COP6 to give the committee go-ahead of using the information from that technical paper. So for during this intersessional period, they will be mainly working on the comments already submitted by parties and observers, and to improve the nature of the guidance. The drafter will develop a proposal for how to revise the guidance by 30th of November 2012. The 10th decision was on climate change and POPs. During the intersessional period between POPRC 7 and 8, there was an intersessional working group that developed a draft guidance on how to assess the possible impact of climate change on its work. The document was available as POPRC8/Inf 20, and the committee looked at this document and revised the subchapter 7.1 on conclusion of this guidance document, and now it is available as Rev 1 of this document. The committee decided to establish an intersessional working group for the next intersessional period to develop a first draft of simplified approach, to revise this draft guidance for consideration at POPRC 9. According to the work plan, the working group will develop a first draft of a simplified approach by 1st December 2012. Then the next decision was on work program on BDEs and PFOS, dissolves and PFOS-F, and the evaluation of the implementation of the Stockholm Convention for those chemicals. COP6 requested the Secretariat to prepare a process for evaluating BDE and PFOS in accordance with the provisions in the Stockholm Convention text. Also, there was a work program on BDE and PFOS, which requested parties to provide information on experience in implementing the recommendations by the POPRC, which is contained in decision POPRC8/2. In response to those requests, the Secretariat prepared draft processes for evaluation of BDE and PFOS, as well as a compilation of information submitted by parties by the end of July on experience in implementing POPRC's recommendations and also progress made in elimination of BDE and PFOS. The committee provided comments on the processes and encouraged the Secretariat to further collect information for the consideration by COP6 on BDEs. The revised processes will be presented at COP6 for its consideration. This activity was mandated to the Secretariat. It was not for the POPRC. So the processes were prepared by the Secretariat, and the committee was only commenting on that process. The last decision taken by the committee was on effective participation of parties in the committee's work. The committee welcomed the webinars and other activities that were undertaken during last year, and requested the Secretariat to continue its activities, especially related to supporting effective participation in the committee's work, including organization of webinars, workshops, facilitation of the development of projects, development of tools for information sharing. The committee also highlighted the importance of regional centers in providing assistance to the POPRC work. So I have introduced all the 12 decisions taken. In summary, there were 7 intersessional working groups established, fluorinated naphthalenes and hexachlorobutadiene. Those 2 groups will be preparing draft risk management evaluation documents based on Annex F information provided by parties and observers. Pentachlorophenolate salts and esters group will prepare draft risk profile based on Annex E information. The 4th group, short-chain coordinate paraffins, currently has no activity, waiting for new information to come. The 5th group, discussion and application of Annex E, will be revising that discussion paper that contained in INF9 of POPRC8. The 6th group, guidance on alternatives to PFOS, itself and PFOS-F, will be revising that guidance document based on the additional information provided and comments from parties and observers. The 7th group, climate change and POPs, will be also revising the draft guidance document presented at POPRC8. The sign-up sheets to join those intersessional working groups were circulated on Friday, 19 October, and this was compiled in the meeting report. But if you were not participating, if you did not participate in POPRC8, but still wish to participate in the intersessional working group, please contact the Secretariat. You can write an email to me, so I can add your email address to the mailing list. The intersessional working groups work via emails and online communication devices such as webinars or teleconferences. So it is possible for anyone to join the group. All I need is an email communication that expresses your interest in participating in the group. But if you didn't participate in the POPRC8 meeting, then your name will not be listed in the meeting report. If you need more information, the report of the meeting will soon be available as UNEPOP/POPRC8/16. The report will include all the decisions taken by POPRC8, and also in the annex, work plan for the preparation of a draft risk profile and risk management evaluation during the intersessional period, and composition of intersessional working groups, also the proposal on next steps for short-chain coordinate paraffins, and the guidance for drafters of risk profiles for consideration of toxicological interactions when evaluating chemicals proposed for listing. The last guidance that I just mentioned was discussed during POPRC8. It was prepared by an intersessional working group and was revised and adapted at the meeting. Please also look at Stockholm Convention's website. All the information requests and forms are available on the website. ENB was present at POPRC8, so it has its report, which can be accessed from this website. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any information that's required by you. Thank you very much.